Once I was lost in sin's degradation. Jesus came down to bring me salvation, lifting me up from sorrow and shame. Now I belong to Him. Now I belong to Jesus. Jesus belongs to me. Not for the years of time alone, but for eternity. Joy floods my soul, for Jesus has saved me, freed me from sin that long had enslaved me. His precious blood He gave to redeem. Now I belong to Him. Now I belong to Jesus. Jesus belongs to me. Not for the years of time alone, but for eternity.
Thank you for your singing. You may be seated. Well, good evening. Let's try that again. All right. Good evening. Hey, it's good to see you. And hopefully you can say it's good to be seen. And I am going to go ahead and ask you, if you will, to take your Bible, go with me to the book of Proverbs, chapter 22. Proverbs 22, we have several verses we're going to start off with looking at here tonight. While you're doing that, on your way in, you should have hopefully been given a handout to follow along with the message here tonight. If you are here and you did not get one of those, we have a finding man in the back. His name is Tim. Tim would be glad to get you one of these. If you raise your hand, he will make sure that you get one of those. And so you are able to take this and keep it, and he will let you have that. There are some of the blanks that are on that handout that you're going to find you will see behind me, and some of them I'm going to save them so there's not so much of one or the other. There's a little bit of mix of both, and so you're going to have to pay a little bit of attention. And if you husbands are taking notes, ladies, you make sure to give him the elbow if you hear he doesn't, okay? And just don't make him mess up what he's writing, okay? So you won't be able to read it after that. But Proverbs 22, I'm going to start reading in verse number 1. That is not the text verse, but I'm going to start there. Verse 1, a good name is rather to be chosen than great riches, and loving favor rather than silver and gold. Your name says something. If I were to ask you a certain name, or I were to name a name, certain things come to your mind. And it could be a president, could be somebody else, maybe your boss, coworker, family member, whatever, those things come to mind. A good name is rather to be chosen than great riches. The rich and poor meet together, verse 2. The Lord is the maker of them all. A prudent man foreseeth the evil and hideth himself, but the simple pass on and are punished. By humility and the fear of the Lord are riches and honor and life. Thorns and snares are in the way of the froward. He that doth keep his soul shall be far from them. Okay? Verse number 6, I'm going to stop here. This is the first of several verses we're going to look at tonight. And it's Proverbs 22, verse number 6. And with that being said, before I read the verse, I am going to just go ahead and tell you, there are a lot of people who will take this verse and they go back and forth, whether it's a principle or a precept, back and forth. However you decide to look at it, I'll let you be the person who chooses that. I'm not going to fight you over it, but I'm just going to read it. Here's what it says. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. And for the next several weeks, we're going to take a look at here, kind of go along with our theme for the year, which has been from 2 Corinthians 5, verse 20. Now then, we are ambassadors for Christ. We represent Jesus everywhere we go, whatever it is we do, wherever you are in your cubicle, your job site, your truck, your car, your family, your house, wherever you go, you're saved, you represent Him. You and I have our own opinions, possibly, of principles and precepts, but in reality, when it comes down to it, there are some things that you and I just can't get away from, that we have to go back to the book and find out what does thus saith the Lord. What does God say, and how does that relay to me and how I go about this particular area of my life? And there's so many other things that applies to as well. You may have your 2 cents, and it may get you in trouble. When it comes to parenting, you may have your 2 cents and it can get you in trouble too. I've always found that whatever I can do to follow God's ways versus my ways, His ways are always better than mine. And so I always try to do that. With all of that said, I am a parent. And I will tell you as a precursor, and I may say this every week, I do not have everything figured out, and I probably never will, and you probably never will. But we do have a place to go to where we can find a guide and what we should be doing, and where we can improve and how we can do things better and honor the Lord. So with all that said, if you take a look at your sheet there, the series of messages we're going to talk about, really parenting, one chance only. Let's pray. Father, we do count it again a privilege to be here tonight. We pray that you would help us. I pray that, Lord, that as there are people here tonight that are parents, that you would help them to take the truths that are here tonight, apply them, use them, and I ask that you would help us in this area as we represent you through what we do, how we do it, that this would be an area that we would seek to improve and be more like Christ. And so we pray for that. I ask that you would help now in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, if there's one thing that, obviously, as the title says, that you've got one chance. You ever had that one chance only? Not too long ago, a week or two ago, we were at the mall and doing some back-to-school shopping and getting a couple things for our kids. And we were in there, and there are these little things in the kiosks as you go down those aisles. And some of them are, kid-friendly. Some of them are geared even towards adults now or whatever. There was this thing, and you put $1 or whatever it is. I don't know what it is, but it's got a key. And it goes up, and they're all different prizes, kind of like the claw, the claw. He's a master. But you have to take that key, and you have to get it in exactly the right place inside that, and then you get it to turn, and then you get an Xbox or a PlayStation, whatever it is. And there were like 5 adults that were like right there, and they're like, oh, no, a little higher, a little higher. I mean, it was hilarious because it's a thing you would think you would see a kid, but these are grown adults doing this. Maybe you've done it. I don't know. I just chuckled as I walked by and said, man, that's kind of funny. I should take a picture of this. And I didn't do that. I don't know you. But you've got one chance with that $1 that you may or may not get the prize. Parenting is not like that. You don't just, I've got this $1 and can spend it, and it'll go a long way for my parenting. Because if you were to evaluate how much it costs for a child, one child, from the time that they are born to the time they leave your house, and then after that it still doesn't stop, most likely, it's a lot of money. A lot of things it costs. But you really only get one chance at parenting. That's it. One chance. 0 to 18, 0 to 22, wherever you feel like it starts and stops for you, I'm not sure. But you have one chance. One chance only. And there are so many things with our life, my life, your life, that when we are involved in those things, you go back and you think, man, I wish I had done this differently. I wish I had done a better job. I wish that I could improve on this right now. Maybe that's what you're thinking. Maybe you think, no, we've got it all figured out. I don't know of a whole lot of parents that feel that way. But if you do, I can promise you, let me just tell you, you're lying to yourself. You don't have it all figured out. Nobody does. There's always something to improve on. And with the one chance that you've got, why not give it everything you've got and do it to God's honor and His glory? On the front of your sheet there, I've got a couple of paragraphs that are just there, short statements. Parenting involves the extremely difficult task of protecting our children from people, places, and sources of information that will destroy them spiritually and morally. Okay? And here's the premise behind everything that this whole sermon, message, lesson, teaching opportunity, whatever you want to look at is It is your responsibility. You are the one who has that one chance. That's it. You alone are the one who's responsible. You may be here tonight and you may be single, you're not married yet, you may be here tonight, you're a teenager and you're not even thinking about that yet. You may be here and you're a grandparent and you've already been there and done that, but you've got grandkids. You may be here and you're thinking to yourself, how does this work for me? And I promise you tonight, no matter where you are, there's something here you can take and you can either save it for later or you can use it today, tonight when you go home, or tonight and next week or whatever, and you can use it, I promise you, and apply it. If I was to say I wish that somebody had given me more of this information earlier than when I received it, that would always be nice. But it's your responsibility. Maybe you're here tonight and you are not yet a parent. What you need to understand is when that day comes, it is your responsibility. If you're here tonight, here's what I'd like for you to do with me. If you are here and you are a parent sitting in this room, I'm going to ask, if you will, just say together with me, it is my responsibility. We're going to do that together on 3, okay? It's not hard. It's my responsibility, and we're going to say that phrase together. If you're a parent here right now, would you do that with me? Here we go. 1, 2, 3. It's my responsibility. Okay. As parents, we cannot depend upon any element of a given community to do for our children the task divinely assigned to us. Here it is again. It is our responsibility. A lot of people today will look at it and think to themselves, "Oh, I'm going to make sure I take them to church, take them to school, take them here, take them there," and it's everybody else's responsibility alongside of that. Whenever we have a baby dedication here at our church, and we have the parents stand up here and they get nervous and they're hoping that nobody throws up or does anything, spit up, whatever, all those kind of things while their baby's up here. And I sometimes I hold, sometimes I don't. I don't want to get my clothes dirty either, but I still love your kids, so if I don't do it, I don't think I don't like them. But one of the things I try to explain is that you are responsible. We are here to enforce as a church and support what your responsibility is. We are here as a means of help, but it's not all on us. The responsibility still lies with you. So we cannot depend on any element of a given community, such as the church even, to do for our children the task that God has given to you. Next thing. We need what? Godly, devoted parents to commit themselves to rearing their children to live in accordance with the Scriptures. That alone, that commitment requires time and energy that few and far between people today are willing to invest in their family. It's a tough commitment to decide that my career is going to take a back seat to my family. My job is going to take a back seat for my family. And I'm going to make sure that that family time is what holds the priority right now for us. And I'm going to be devoted, I'm going to commit myself to raising my family as the Bible would have me to do so. Okay, so with all that said, you are responsible. That is where we were. And there is some instruction. There is some hope for us. It is not a doom and gloom thing. Some people look at it, we have kids. Oh no, what are we going to do? We just went from 2 to 3 to 4 or whatever. And the Bible tells us that the fruit of the womb it's His reward. It's a blessing to have children. And at the same time, a lot of people today look at it, I just don't know if we can go down this road. I don't know if it's possible for us. I don't know if we're going to be able to do this. There are a whole lot of people that have really failed and messed up. And so because of that, I just don't think that I want to go down this road of having a family. And I don't want to chance it because there's so many people that I've seen, that their kids just turn out terrible or something bad happens. And I don't want that to be what happens. The verse 1 that I read, a good name, I don't want my name to be affected. And so I'm just not even going to go down that road. And so we're just not happening at all, and we'll just keep it that way. In that respect, and what that means is that we are being selfish. If God chooses to bless and He chooses to do that, then that will be great. There is hope for us that it is possible to have children and to raise them as God would have us to do. So what is the hope? Proverbs 22:6. Here it is. Train up a child in the way he should go. When he is old, he will not depart from it. Okay, there's your verse. Under your sheet there, here's what it says. If children go off course, parents must conclude one of 3 things. It is possible for you to train, and then at the same time, in your process of training, doing what you're supposed to be doing, how you are doing it, if you're doing it the right way according to the Bible, and later on something doesn't happen. Because the training here is what is mentioned in this verse, train up a child in the way he should go. Which way should he go? Would you honestly steer your child in the wrong direction? Nobody does that on purpose. If you do, you've got something wrong. You want the very best for your child, for them to succeed, for them to have the best possible in everything that they could have. You want them to have the best. So, train up a child in what? In the way he should go. The way. What is the way? The way that seemeth right unto man? No, the end of that is the ways of death. But the way that is before us, that we have, that is right and wrong. The Holy Spirit gives us illumination. He gives us verses. He gives us teaching. He brings things to our remembrance. How and what is right and wrong. And there it is. You and I should be making some biblical principles about how it is we're going to do that. And if it happens that you do that training, and you look at it, well, this, you can't really claim this as a promise because, this has happened or that has happened. It's just a precept or it's just a principle, all those things. Okay, well, if they go off course, and that does happen, and you think to yourself or you try to explain away the verse, then what you have to come to the conclusion is one of two things. Number one, God did not fulfill His promise. If He gives the verse, and here it is, it's His promise that He's giving, and it happens that that particular child goes off the record, goes off the course, and he doesn't do that, then you got to conclude, first of all, one of three things. God didn't fulfill His promise, or number two, the principle does not work very well. Either he's wrong and he doesn't fulfill his promise, or number two, the principle doesn't work very well. And I can tell you that all his ways are right. There is no verse, nothing that you cannot claim that is not going to come and it is not going to be beneficial. It's always going to be of a help. What he sets out to accomplish with his word, it is truth. Or number three, here's the other conclusion. They did not do a very good job of training. Either one of three things happened. Either God didn't fulfill His promise in what the verse says. Number two, the principle didn't work very good. Or number three, the training didn't happen. Regardless of whether you look at the verse, and I'm not going to cross hairs with you on it, but if it's a principle, a precept, or promise, however you like to define it, whatever, either way, here's what it says. Either as a promise or a principle, the verse works when the training occurs. The verse works when the training occurs. It's your responsibility. It's my responsibility to help enforce, but ultimately when the day's all said and done, it is your responsibility to do the training that is necessary. I heard this just the other day, and I've been trying to chew on it and to take it and to apply it to other areas, okay? So if you want to write this down, it's a nugget, it's not mine, I got it, I heard it, I stole it, and so I'm sharing it with you, okay? Here it is. Don't complain about what you don't train. Don't complain about what you don't train. Doesn't that apply to so many other places? It applies in parenting, it applies to me in many cases, all kinds of things. For you, same thing. One of the things that happened for us, and this is something that I still try and do for our kids, wherever we have kids, and so sometimes I'm talking with you after church. And I got to the place, I don't know, probably about a year and a half ago, where I remember I was talking with somebody and my son came up and he was really excited about something and he was just and wanted to talk to me, and Natalie, same thing, same night, everything. I don't remember what was going on. And so I said, okay, I had a serious conversation with somebody about something that you needed to talk to me about. My kids, there they are. And so here's what I did. I said, okay, and you may think this is weird, but this is what I had to come up with to figure out what I could do to get them to understand. If you see me talking to somebody, having a serious conversation, could be about football, anything's possible between September and December, but I said, okay, here's what I want you to do. And so I had them right there in the living room. I said, come here. And so I said, if you see me and I'm in church, I'm talking with somebody, here's what I want you to do. You just come right up to me. I said, take your hand, you put your hand on my side right there. And when I feel that, I'll know you've got something you need to ask me, tell me. Now, Natalie may be going like this. That means she's got to go to the bathroom. I just say no. But she comes over and she'll stand there and she'll wait and she'll look at me and I'll go like this and I'll say, hold on just a second. And then when I get to the spot of the conversation where I say, okay, hold, and then I will acknowledge her and say, yes, what is it? I had gone home and I was upset. You interrupted my conversation that was important about something somebody had. And then I thought, okay, I can't complain about what I have at training, because when it all comes down to it, at the end of the day, it's my responsibility. For you may think that's weird or odd or whatever, but it's just what we implemented. And I would say right now it probably happens about 95% of the time. For the most part, there's a window of error there, give or take 3 to 4% that it doesn't happen. But we've tried it, we've implemented it. Sometimes in the car, I will say, hey, you forgot when I was talking to so-and-so. Now, they may be already asleep by the time we go home, but I usually try to remember that and enforce that. But training works. The verse works when the training occurs. And so if it happens, and it does, and I'm not trying to browbeat you, I'm just saying, if that's the case, one of 3 things happens as a result of that. All right, moving on. 1 Timothy chapter 3 and verse 4. Okay? This is a fun one. Applies to me. One that ruleth well his own house, having his children in subjection with all gravity. Okay? This is a passage in 1 Timothy. It gives you the qualifications for a pastor. There's a lot of stuff there that applies. This is one of those. Hospitality is one of them. Ruling well his own house is one of those. The husband of one wife, blameless, not a striker, not a brawler, all those things, not given to wine, filthy lucre, all those things are there. Okay, but this is part of it. That phrase that is in that verse, with all gravity, means that dad's parenting skills are to do what? They're to inspire reverence and respect from his children as he keeps them in subjection. Okay? That is not something that is impossible to do. Okay? So here's a question. If it's something that is required of in a pastor, would God have given that promise or requirement if it was not possible? No, it is possible. There's a lot of work that has to go into it, a lot of commitment that has to happen. I have seen men who were in ministry that, and from what I saw, there was questionable down there, big question mark, based on what had happened with kids, and however you want to look at that. But it does say that you're to rule well those that are of your own house and have them in subjection with all gravity. That does not mean that you put a club over their head and said, I brought you into this world, I will take you out. But it does mean that they understand you're in charge, and as you are parenting, keeping them in check, in subjection, that when you do that, you do it in a way that it inspires reverence and respect. And they still look up to you. They don't hate you for it. It's not like you've got the thumb and you're just really driving them into the ground, because in the other passage we're going to see, you do that with nurture and admonition. So, when it's done, the reverence, the respect, you still love your dad. You still care about the person who is doing that as you're doing that. Okay? Children, next thing there, in Christian homes are to display reverence and respect for their parents. And the parents are to make it happen. Children in Christian homes are to display reverence and respect for their parents, and the parents are to make it happen. Okay? We have, I guess maybe, I was just thinking about this yesterday, but there's some unwritten rules you may have or may not have in your home. One of those for us in our home is very simple. Hey, what mom says do, you better do it. I don't care. You do not talk back. You do not disrespect. Whatever she says, if she asks you to do something, it goes, man. And it's the same thing for me. It's what it is. There's no arguing. This is what it is. This is where it stands. And you are doing that. And as you do that, at the same time, there is respect that is there. Do not disrespect the authority. I guarantee you, and I used to be in a Christian school environment, there would be kids that would have zero zilch respect for people who were in other places of authority. And most of the time, I could probably take you to the house And if there was no respect that was there or reverence for the mom or the dad or whatever, that's where it started, and that's where it carried over from, and that's where it spills over still over and over and over again. Okay? Genesis 18, verse 19. Moving on. He will command his children and his household after him, and they shall keep the way of the Lord to do justice and judgment. If you would like to look at the verse there in its context, you look that up for yourself, you're welcome to do that. But the promises there are true, and parenting here and what's going on. The phrase there, keep the way of the Lord, includes far more than external performance. We would like to be able to think that if we have all of the things implemented in our family with the right programs and the right teaching and the right curriculums and all of those things, that means somehow when it's all said and done that the kids are going to keep the way of the Lord. But that is including far more than just a set of externals, because what could happen is that you do everything by bringing your kid to church and getting all the little stickers and all the stars and all the coloring sheets and all the verses are memorized and every I is dotted, every T is crossed, every Q with its little thing on the end, whatever you want to do, and your kids have gone through all of those motions, and what you've created is a Christian robot that is outwardly, yes, doing it externally, and it's going through the motions, but there has been nothing that has affected the heart, and as a result, the mind has not been affected either. And so what has happened is that you really just created a little robot that is doing everything out of the motions, and there's nothing really happening on the inside. Keep, you know that. Keep thy heart with all diligence. Same word. It has the idea of guarding, preserving, here it is in your blank there, and observing, making sure you do it. What is the way? Keep the way of the Lord. It has the idea of a trodden path. Keep that path of what? The Lord. In the same verse there, it talks about this in your next phrase there, to do justice and judgment. What is justice? It has the same translation in the Old Testament as righteousness, which means moral virtue and right living. So to keep the way of the Lord means to guard that path of moral virtue and right living, and at the same time, judgment. What is judgment? Also discretion, good sense, and decision making. Good sense and decision making. Our goal should be in our parenting to have them keep the way of the Lord, to guard that path of moral virtue and good sense and decision making. Last thing underneath Genesis 18:19 says, we have every reason to believe that our children can grow up keeping the way of the Lord, doing justice and judgment. It is possible. It's not something that was, that existed back in the 50s and, My Father Knows Best and Andy Griffith and Leave It to Beaver and all those guys, they had it all, My Three Sons or whatever, they had it all down pat. It doesn't apply anymore. It's not possible. It does. It is possible for your kids to keep the way of the Lord in their life. 1 Kings chapter 1 and verse number 6 is the next verse. It says this, and his father had not displeased him at any time in saying, why hast thou done so? I'll give you the context. David and Adonijah, okay? Adonijah had been spoiled through privileges, and he finally did what? He rebelled against the authority of his father and king. That's your first sentence there. David, we know, okay, but he's obviously as a king, he's got some wealth. And what can happen in your parenting if you accumulate things, and there's nothing wrong with giving good gifts to your children. You want to do that. You want to be a blessing. But he was the son, Adonijah was, of David's, that had been spoiled so much so through everything that he got through those privileges of his dad is the king, and he's got it made, and all those things all of those privileges and the things that he got eventually turned into his rebellion. Sometimes that's possible for you to have happen, that you get to the spot where you want them to have it, and then what happens is that privilege, that spoiling, turns into, I gotta have it, always have it, spoil me, I want this, I've gotta have it, I want it now, the whole thing, I need it right now. And then what happens as a result is you have maybe a little bit of rules and there's no relationship, and rules without that relationship, it's just, okay, I'll give you the presents and not my presence, leads to rebellion. And that's what happened with Adonijah. Parents are not doomed It is the way children are reared that most greatly affects the way they turn out. You're not doomed to have bad kids. David was not doomed to have bad kids. He was not doomed to have rebellious kids. But what we are encouraged, next thing there, we are encouraged to believe that if David had been different, Adonijah would have been different. Same thing. Hophni and Phinehas. Would they have been the same? Would they have been better if Eli had been better? Absolutely. All of those things apply. Whatever you and I decide that we are going to do, we can live with the hope, and we can decide that we're not going to just let spoiling happen all the time and then let that lead to rebellion. Okay? Ephesians chapter 6, verse 4. Here's the verse. Fathers, specifically, provoke not your children to wrath, but bring them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. What is provoke? What is wrath? It has the idea of wrath that comes from exasperation. Probably one of the worst times that you could ever, I'll just throw this out there, discipline is when you're angry. It's the worst time. They've done wrong, they've messed up, I mean it's bad. And they have really, and you are exasperated, you are fuming inside, the words are coming out, I mean, you're just upset. I mean, that macaroni and cheese just went all over the floor. I spent a grand total of about 5 to 7 minutes watching that boil, and now I mix it up with the cheese sauce, and that kid spilled it all over the floor. And then you go off. And then what is that? You're in the flesh and you rip your kid's face off. And then you decide, you're just going to let it, have him from there, and you're going to light into him or whatever. And so you have to be careful. You're provoking. You can also provoke them to wrath. You can make them do wrong. They have buttons just like you have buttons. We're encouraged not to provoke them to wrath, but do what? Bring them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. So here it is. Do the math. All right? Here it is. Proper nurture. What is that? Training, instruction, and correction. With what? Add that with admonition. That's appropriate rebuke, warning, and reaching the mind. What is the result of that? What does that equal? It keeps the child from reacting and rejecting parental authority. If you can do that, here's the key words in that math equation, by the way. Proper training, proper instruction, proper correction. If you can do those things in the right way, because there are some wrong ways. I've had moments where I've had to say, hey, listen, and you may do this too, you go to your room and I'll be there in 2 minutes. Now, that does a couple things, and I can't really go into that now because my kids are here. But you get the idea. It's for a purpose. It makes me cool down, first of all, and then they get to think about it. Secondly, and then you go and you take care of business, whatever needs to happen. But there's a proper way to train, there's a proper way to instruct, there's a proper way to do the correction. And then at the same time, when you have that opportunity that it comes in there for that correction, there's the appropriate way to do that. I had never seen it, never heard it, and of all people that I heard this from, it was Dave Young. It was probably like 2002, 2003, and he came into the ministerial class or whatever, and I have no idea why they asked him. He came in, he was teaching on some of the stuff about the family and the home or whatever. And so he was going through there and he was talking about some things or whatever, and he showed us, who knows how old those kids were then, but he showed us this is how we go about things, whatever. And there was something that he said there that I took away from that, and I heard Pastor Scheller say some of the similar things, whatever, and I took some of those principles, and I've done my best to try and make sure those are what I do. So when the nurture comes and it's time to correct, I go in there, I take care of business, I discipline. But when it's all said and done, the thing that I always try to do that I heard from him that day was, before you leave, they have to know that you still love them. And they have to know that when you leave. And so usually what we've always tried to do is we go in, we take care of the discipline matter, we correct it, we have that time together, and then I pray with them. I ask them to pray. I pray with them, and we go through that together, and there is the admonition that happens as a result. Try to get them to see up here and to think about it and let it get to here. All right? While children are clearly told, look at the last phrase, to obey their parents in all things. We love that verse as parents. Here's the other part of it. Parents are reminded that how they handle their God-given authority will make a world of difference in how their children respond. Somebody said this, I don't know who it was. Event plus response equals outcome. Event plus response equals the outcome. How you and I decide that we're going to handle it oftentimes determines the outcome of what's going to happen. If you want to see something change about what happened, and you've been seeing your kid does this over and over and over and over and over again, there's the event. You have the opportunity. It's your responsibility and mine to respond and see the outcome different. What is insanity? Continuing to do the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And so if you see something that you know needs to be corrected, do something about it, and then you will have what? The outcome can be different, but it's how you go about it. You've heard this said. It's not what you said, it was how you said it. Sometimes that's the same thing here as well in parenting. So what are we to do? What is it that we're to do? Here it is. I'm going to close. We're going to go through these things here pretty quickly here, okay? Number one, accept responsibility for your children. Accept responsibility for your children. Good parenting is not a matter of doing one's best. It is doing one's best in accordance with what? The Scriptures. When it's all said and done, you may look at it and say, well, I did the best I could. You may say that, but did you do the best you could according to what the Bible says? Because if you haven't used that as the guide, and you're just going on it thinking, man, we can wing this, we've got this, we'll figure it out, I'll buy a book off of Amazon or somewhere, from Family Life Today or whatever, and we'll use that and we'll make it all work and everything will be just fine. I can listen to a podcast every single day and we'll be the best parents on planet Earth. Doing those things are good tools, but doing them without the Bible is not going to happen. Number two, determine not to blame shift for your child's ways. Much of parenting is protection and much of it is positive training. I'll say that again. Determine not to blame shift for your child's ways. Much of parenting is protection and much of it is positive training. Okay? So, and it comes down to the end of the day, your kid makes a decision, my kid makes a decision, they make a choice. It's a willful choice. They do it. It is all falls back here. We are the ones who are responsible. It is, sure, yes, they can get to the place where they reach adulthood. They reach the point where they make decisions on their own. They have a free will to choose just like everybody does, and all of those things are true. But at the same time, right now, the time frame that you and I have to train, to instill, to determine that if all of those things we did, when it comes down to it, I'm not going to blame shit. I'm not going to point the finger. My kid in 3 weeks goes to school and he comes home and lies. I'm not going to go to the teacher and say, hey, my son lied. It's all your fault. You gave this assignment and this assignment's all, messed up and you this is what he said. And, I'm not going to go do that. I'm going to instill and say, hey, listen, what happened here? What's going on? Find out. I'm not going to blame shit. Number 3, begin daily prayer for children by name. Parents must believe prayer for their child will make a difference, and they must pray. Daily prayer. You may have a kid, and there's just a phase of life or whatever. They are doing everything they possibly can to push your buttons and to push them over and over and over and over and over and over again. I have a family member who has a child, and that particular child at that age, it was like unbelievable. I saw some of the stuff with my eyes, and they kept at it, and they stood there, and, we can't believe, we disciplined this kid, we prayed with him, we talked about it, this is just a matter of the will that is not dying. It's not stopping. They were praying, God help us, we don't want to get arrested, that they were abusers here or whatever, we need help, get this kid under control, we need help. But they didn't do it, and they did it in a loving way, in the nurture and the admonition that was there, and they began to pray. And parents must believe prayer for their child will make a difference, and they must pray. All right, here you go. Number 4. This applies to just more than parenting, something that I have heard in recent days and trying to adopt for myself. Here it is. Number 4, lower expectations for others. Lower expectations for others. Okay, here's what that means. It could be that there is the best person on planet Earth that works with kids or works with children, or you're a teenager and you think, man, they are just the most wonderful people. They relate so well to them. They give great lessons. They have great devotions with them. The contact is there. They're seeking to build them up, and man, they're doing such a wonderful job, and we really like them. And and here's what happens is that we can see somebody who does a great job with our kid, and we really thank the Lord for them, and God is using them in some great ways and all those things. But what you and I forget is that that person who may do an excellent, wonderful, popular job with everybody, more than just you, is still just a person, and they can and will fail. So if you and I get to the spot where we really expect nothing out of them, and then it just so happens to be that they do a great job, then that's great. But if they do a really poor job, then, oh well, let's talk, what can we do better? Let's try and help that person, encourage that person. If the expectations are low and they do a really great job, then that's wonderful. Children, because of that factor, should be kept as innocent as possible, as long as possible. Number 5 there, children. I moved on. Number 4, let me back up. The less we expect from others, the less our disappointment when they fail, and the greater our joy and appreciation when they minister effectively. Think about that for a second. The less we expect, the less our disappointment when they fail, and the greater our joy and appreciation when they minister effectively. Sometimes that happens not just with your kids. People put pastors and other people in ministry leadership up on pedestals. They think they're the greatest thing or whatever, and they have all this charisma, and they're so loved and so admonished, and they're almost on a pedestal right next to where God is. And then all of a sudden the pastor does something really horrific, and then winds up in an affair or arrested or whatever, lies, cheats, steals, I don't know, whatever happens. And then what happens is people think, well, what happened? I've seen people that they have to stop and evaluate, was he God or not? Or was he as great as we thought, or was he not? Or maybe he still is, or he just kind of messed up a little bit. If you keep the expectation low when they fail, there's no disappointments. But when they do well, the joy is there. Number 5, protect children from improper influences. Protect children from the improper influences. Children should be kept, here's where I was at, as innocent as possible, as long as possible. Kids have an innocence that's there. It's a wonderful thing. I've heard some funny things that just come out or whatever, and it's totally innocent. They have no clue. They have the wrong thing maybe associated with whatever it is they said, whatever's going on in their brain. There's no recollection at all. There's just complete and total innocency that's there, and the longer you can keep that, the better it is, okay? Moving on. Christian people, here it is, summarizing this up, have all the resources necessary to enjoy a successful and happy home life. What are we to do? Claim it for yourself with an open Bible, a tender heart, and dependence on the Spirit of God. You have all the resources. It's not like that you don't have them. It's not that you can't find them. They're there. So what are we to do? Have a tender heart, open Bible, and depend on the Spirit of God. Now, let's just say right now, you'd say, look, we've got some things, this is just kind of where we are. There's some problems here. We're sorting through. We're working through. Here you go. If your home is not what you want it to be, lastly, or more importantly, not what God wants it to be, now is the time to make a difference. So what can you and I do ASAP? Couple things. Number one, confess sin to the Lord, and where appropriate, make things right with people. It may be that God is working in your heart, and He's doing something through you right now with your family. Now, everybody might not be on board necessarily as fast as you are. So it may take some time that you sort through all of this and you decide that you're going to make some changes, and your wife or your husband or whoever it is might not be on board, or maybe you got a teenager that's really just bound and determined that they're going to buck every part of your authority or whatever, and you got to spend some extra time in prayer. But where you have to start first is where you are. Individually, confess your sin, and where it's appropriate, you may have to make some things right with other people. Maybe you need to make something right with your spouse. Maybe it is you need to make something right with your kids. And then, after that, number two, prayerfully consider what should be different about your home and establish a plan to achieve those goals. Prayerfully consider what should be different about your home and establish a plan to achieve those goals. I was talking with somebody yesterday about financial goals. That person, that's what they do for a living. They are a financial investor, planner, and all of those things. There's a plan that you can get. Put this much money aside, this is what it does. For you and for me with our family, we can't have a plan. We can make things that we are going to do a priority and things that we don't need to do a back burner, and establish a game plan. The back side of your handout, I'm not going to read that right at this moment, but I'd ask you, if that's you tonight, you'd say, hey, listen, our home isn't like what I would like to see it. There's some things that we really need to work on. Maybe you're here, you'd say, there's some things that need to be tweaked, but for the most part, we're being successful from what we've been able to see so far, but there's some work, there's some polishing. Either way, I'd ask you to read that covenant. I'd ask you to read that. Take that, use it. You want to put it somewhere in your house, you want to put it on your refrigerator, in your bedroom, wherever it is. It's some powerful words there that you can apply. And you may be here tonight and say, hey, I have no kids. Okay. I would have liked to have heard some of the stuff I just shared with you when I was where you are, because I didn't get any of that really at the time, and I got some stuff later on, and then I determined that when it came time, we found out we were expecting, I was going to read books, and I was going to listen to messages, and I was going to get whatever I could and glean from it and take it every single step of the way. And as I told you, I'm not perfect. You'll see my kids, and you'll see me, and I'm not perfect, but I am working on it. And what you should be doing is working on it. Would you pray for that? Let's pray. Father,